Hi, this is Sebastian again with an introduction to MRV. And well, you might have heard about MRV, and it popped up from time to time, and then it went down again, and now it pops up again. So what is MRV? It keeps on coming. What does MRV stand for? And who are you? And all these questions you might ask. So let's let's get into what MRV is. MRV was originally named Maya RV, and Maya RV was short for Maya Revised, because the original idea was to have something that possibly replaces the Mel core, the Mel scripts that have produced so much pain all over the world, and replace them by nicely written, nicely designed Python object-oriented Python scripts. So that's definitely possible, just a lot of work. So someone has to do it, I guess, and there's no way to do it without a proper framework, I guess. And this is what Maya Revised was supposed to provide. So, of course, no one really gets the idea of, hey, let's rewrite the whole mail stuff with Python. Of course not, there must be more that has to be done. So I had to write a pipeline for a movie project again. My previous one was done in Mail nearly completely, and now I didn't want to use Mail anymore, for sure. I mean, I was, I have suffered enough, I guess. So I didn't really know at this point that I will suffer even more while writing MRV, but well, here it comes. So these two lines, add an attribute and get an attribute, you need them in Mel to do the named things. The same thing we've written in Python with the Python Mel bindings would look like this. So it's kind of similar, but harder to read if you ask me, and less clear perhaps. So I didn't like it. I didn't like the way it was, and as we all know, the Python bindings were far from being perfect and even harder to use than Mel itself, so why using it? So this is where PyMel came in, right? PyMel fixed lots of stuff and made it object-oriented and fixed even more. And yeah, at this time PyMel wasn't ready enough for me to use. Besides, I didn't like Mel, and PyMel uses the same semantics, so I can't use it. I wanted to use the MyAPI, but if you consider this code that just uses the plain MyAPI Python bindings, then you see that it is quite a lot of code for these two lines. And it's even harder to read, and perhaps it's fast, sure, but it's super hard to read, too much to write, too hard to maintain, and too expensive. So I couldn't afford it, and I didn't want to write that anyway, even if I would have 10 years' time, which I didn't have. So I want to write something like this. Much more concise, object-oriented, uses the API. So this is how I would even like to use the C++ API. No question, no question. Would love to do that. I mean, it will never look like this, but it's possible to improve things there as well. Nonetheless, in Python, I would like to do it like this. So this is what MRV was supposed to become, and this was what I was working for the following 3 months. What you see now is kind of the polished version. MRV preview is much better than what I had back then. It's much faster and much more mature. And still, how can you learn it? Why should you even consider learning that? It's just a different way of writing code, right? And you could definitely, you could write a little more code and use MyAPI wrapping, or you could, there are many ways to write tools, that's for sure, but there are only a few ways which are that convenient. In Maya 2011, you have PyMel, which is great, which is very convenient to use for for basically everyone. And if you were kind of, into Mel before, if you have written a few lines of Mel in your life, then you can probably deal with PyMel as well. So that's clearly a point. Still, if you want to write faster code with different semantics, then you need to go right to the API Python bindings, which are kind of complicated to write, and well, it's expensive and well, not easy to learn either. So this is where MRV comes into play, I think, because MRV is much easier to read, much easier to write, much faster to write, and it is part of a framework which helps you to write good code. MRV really is about writing good code and maintaining that quality of the code over the lifetime of your software. And it tries to tell you how to do that by telling you how MRV has been produced. So it's the production of MRV is totally test-driven. So for everything in MRV, well, I don't want to lie, possibly not everything, but most of the things, and the core definitely is 100% unit or 100% covered by unit tests, which is important to be sure it really works everywhere. So it works from Maya 8.5 to Maya 2011, and I know it works because I can test it. So let's just test that. Test bin tmrv r, which is the regression testing for MRV. We'll run through all the Maya versions that you have installed and test a lot of stuff. We'll run for 80 seconds, no, not more, probably, I don't know, for quite a while, so we don't watch this. Should be running through. But it doesn't always do this. Sometimes it, for some reason it doesn't do it, but then it does it again. Anyway, so this is how I know that MRV is working, and your software can do the same thing, because you can use all the facilities that MRV provides. And this doesn't even stop with the testing and with the framework. It also helps you to distribute your software, because it comes with a distribution framework that does it all. That cares about the dependencies that you have, is easy installable, is installable with the dist utils. Well, it's quite complete by now, although I'm still not happy, which is why we are still in preview mode here and not in kind of RC mode, because there's a bit more to be done regarding the accessibility of the project. So plenty of documentation has already been written, as you see, and if you have any time or interest, I really recommend starting to work with it and to try it out. So one way you can approach it is to just work through the usage examples. So there you could just get an IMRV. I have a few more videos which show how to get that installed. Well, would launch 2011 anyway. And now you can basically just see what things are in there. Okay, transform, does that exist? Yeah, it does exist. Cool. Well, anyway, what that means, who knows? So that's one interactive approach to get used to it. Another approach, of course, is to study the test cases yourself, or to study the template project, which currently is called NMIO. We'll come to that in one of the next videos, which gets into the structure a bit more. So I believe that MRV, with its very small footprint, memory footprint is very small, 15 megabytes, MRV itself, plus 15 for OpenMaya, starts up very fast, 0.8 seconds, and well, it's fast. So it's worth having a look at it. Thanks for watching.